We'll switch gears now.
We're switching gears to a review of the economy in 2016. Now, Nigeria is experiencing its most challenging period since the return of democracy in 1999. That's the perception out there. Recession, and the country is confronted by the biggest humanitarian disaster since the Biafran War, faced by terrorism, militancy, and challenged by inter-ethnic clashes and protests all over. From reportedly losing its spot as the continent's biggest economy, the effect of Nigeria's militancy on its oil revenues, and slipping of the economy into a state of recession after over 2 decades. Now, this new administration came in 2015 with a plan, and during the electioneering period, there was our promise of we will move the economy back to its rightful place, and there were speculations that they had promised 1 naira to $1. Well,
I didn't hear that.
Well, I said there were speculations and all, but be that as it may, we're looking at how has the year been economically, and we have 2 gentlemen to help us look at this. We have in the studio Pascal Odibo, a financial and economic analyst, consultant. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Also joining us from via Skype, we have Charles Iyore, who's an economist, I believe, joining us from the United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us, Charles. I'm sure we'll be able to set out the audio thing. Yeah, we can hear you now. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Okay, let's begin with you, Pascal. You're out there probably looking at the Nigerian economy. If you can hear me, just let it drop. We can still hear you. Okay. You're looking at the Nigerian economy from out there. So tell us, what has your observation been for 2016?
Well, I'll say that in 2016, we managed not to meet all the expectations. What everyone expected was that we'll press the reset button. What I meant by the reset button was that we'll begin to do our ratio analysis very well. The common bond with every business in Nigeria is the currency. And if I'm explaining that to you, that's like the lifeblood of business. If on a daily, on an annual basis, you print, let's say, 1,000 naira notes, you assume that those 1,000 naira notes will ensure that all the trade and exchange that will take place in the economy will be achieved. We have stopped doing trade by barter, so you now have a paper that carries value. If of that 1,000 notes that you printed, you use 500 of it to pay for the services of 5% of population, then you haven't started at all. What that means basically is that you expect that all production outside of that small civil service has no value and the exchange will take place. Once you have such a basic distortion of translation of your resources into currency, it becomes very difficult to balance anything. That's the first one. Secondly, one would have thought that for a long, long while we've been talking about budgets, which are statements of intention. This is where we want to be. This is where we want to be. What makes that happen is called a process. In other words, the president needs to have his own line item in the budget. The governor needs to have his own line item in the budget, all the way down to local government. Does the president want a primary school in each of the 770 local governments in Nigeria? Does he want a health center in each of the 770 local governments in Nigeria? Once you don't clearly bring the process for achieving your objectives in clear, definite budget line items, you are hiding to nothing. Now, this is what we think has happened, and it's disappointing that even the exchange and allocation of foreign exchange is such that every person in the economy is taking advantage of the exchange position, whether they're bankers or civil servants or foreigners, such that the money that's supposed to provide for this country doesn't create any value at all. More than 50% of what is spent as dollars brings no value to the economy. That's my short note. Thank you.
All right, let's come back to the studio. He's, I think, from what he said, hinging the situation on the currency, the naira, and against other foreign currencies. What's your own take? What is your take on the economy in 2016 vis-a-vis the issue of recession?
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I mean, I've been here severally. I mean, not in this particular program, but in the program that we had, and I've aired my opinion and severally said clearly that this government came in with so much, there was so much expectation from the people that what perhaps you noticed at their coming was most like get this guy out and get this guy in because he has a solution to the issues and to the challenge. And unfortunately for them, they came in at a time when all the macroeconomic indices were beginning to head south. Though those things we are running their head before they came in. You know, my take is that they need to do a lot much more thinking. That is need for a lot more strategic thinking. You know, instead of being reactive, they must be responsive, which means that you are taking a certain pathway. You know, you're developing certain policies in order to trigger a boom or a growth in areas. And the examples I say is this: if your business is going through a challenge, what you first of all would do is call for a strategic session. You know, from top to senior management will come in, what they call a war room, and guys, what do we, and I think that's what the guy was referring to, what do we want to achieve in these 4 years in the long term? What will we want to achieve in 2 years in the medium term? And what are the quick wins we want to do in 1 year? Incidentally, they lost 6 months in the prevarication that brought them to power. So that meant a critical loss of a critical time space. And my take is that I hope that in 2017, because if you ask anybody on the street on how this government has fed an economy, it's with zero, with a dot in the middle. You know, they need to reverse that. You know, and they can do that. And I'm hoping that as they take on their 2017 budget, you know, they'll get a lot much more bullish, much more aggressive, and stick their hands in the mud and get things to happen. And these are things that can happen. There are people on ground, there are human capacity, you know, that can take on these challenges and get them resolved. But as far as we have seen, they need a couple of tweaking here and there in order to reflate the system. For a system to be in recession, you know, there are two ways to go. Is that it goes up, gets out of it, which is below ground zero, okay, or it goes further down, it goes into depression, and it's not a route you want to go, whether it's a government or the people.
Okay, Mr. Yuri, there's the report out there has it that the Nigerian economy contracted continuously for 3 quarters, back to back, quarter 1, 2, 3. But what do you think a combination of severe economic, security, and political pressure, as we have, or we seem to be having, or maybe that's the thinking of government, do you think that combining those 3 things would in any way help move the economy out of where it is now to where it should be, or towards where it should be?
Well, first of all, I don't want to do a question of they and us. We're all collectively in this together. If Nigeria doesn't fail, no one is going to get out of this, even those of us who live abroad. Now, what I can tell you for certain, and I repeat it again, is that what is essential are the ratios. If you give me a big head, my body will not carry it. If you give me a long hand, I won't have any coordination. You can't spend your money without a ratio analysis. How much money are you spending in the city? How much money are you spending in the countryside? If you don't get that right, you can't manage your currency. Okay. And like I keep telling you, the currency is the lifeblood of the economy. Now, you're saying the political change, the political will seems to be there, as I've said. But hearing those who spoke earlier before you, there is obviously not a narrative. That's the first one. And you're not using a bottom-up approach. A situation where all communities in Nigeria are waiting for government handouts is pathetic. There's no social enterprise. They can't build their schools anymore. In 1946, we built our houses. We didn't live in huts. We knew how to use mud to build our houses. If we had extended those up till now, we should be able to build our houses. The Babada that you wear all over the place, they have no sizes. You can't take advantage of economies of scale. Let's not look at the big things. Look at the small things. You know that the notes that are written by each teacher to teach a child how to pass a common entrance or 6 forms exams and stuff like that can become a universal workbook. You can make a millionaire out of a brilliant teacher every week in Nigeria.
Okay.
If you're not creating value...
So if I may come in here.
There's no value.
When you talk about the amount of money you spend within the system,
how you spend it.
How you spend the money. The question...
That's right.
Yeah, someone will ask you, do you even have the money to spend before you talk about how you spend the money you have? Right now, some people were not paid before the holiday period. Some haven't been paid for months. And then those that are paid portions of what they are supposedly owed. So what would you talk about spending where you don't have money to spend?
Let me tell you, it's pathetic. The biggest strength of a sovereign or a sub-sovereign is the ability to write a piece of paper and put a value on it. But that value must be defended. You can't talk about not having money to spend. What it means that your allocation process is weak, is flawed. And I already told you basically, you can't print 1,000 naira notes and use 500 of it to pay for the services of 5% of the population. It's basic economics. That's what makes you sovereign. The currency you have in Nigeria is not printed in America. It is printed in Nigeria by the government, between the Treasury and the central bank. They must tell themselves what are the linkages that will give value to that currency. How can you say you can't pay salaries? It means you don't know what you're doing. What they're doing is unnecessary pay imposed on themselves because they haven't got the basic understanding of the markets. Thank you.